I never thought I'd reach a point where I would question my own mother, but that's exactly what happened. It started so small that I almost ignored it. Just a few moments here and there, things that didn't make sense at the time but stayed in my head longer than they should have. A late-night notification, a sudden smile while looking at her phone. The way she would quickly lock the screen whenever someone walked into the room. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. I mean, this was my mom. The same woman who raised me, who sacrificed everything for this family, who I trusted more than anyone else in the world. But then the small things started turning into patterns. She began taking calls in another room, not just once or twice, but almost every day. And every time she came back, she acted completely normal, a little too normal, like nothing had happened. Like there was nothing to hide, but something inside me didn't feel right anymore. It's hard to explain, but when you know someone your entire life, you can feel even the smallest change in them. And this was a change I couldn't ignore. One night I was just sitting there scrolling through my phone when I heard her voice from the kitchen. It was soft, different. Not the way she usually talked to family or friends. I wasn't trying to listen, but I couldn't help it. The tone, it didn't match anything I had heard before. It felt secretive, careful. Almost like she didn't want anyone else to hear. That's when the thought hit me for the first time, and I hated myself for even thinking it. What if she was hiding something? I tried to push it away immediately. I remember literally shaking my head like I could erase the idea from my mind. No, I told myself, that's not possible. My mom isn't like that. Our family isn't like that. These things don't happen to us. They happen in movies, in other people's lives, not here. But once a thought like that enters your mind, it doesn't leave easily. The next few days felt different. Every little thing she did started to stand out. If she smiled at her phone, I noticed it. If she stepped outside to take a call, I noticed it. If she seemed distracted during dinner, I noticed it. And the worst part, I started connecting things that probably weren't even connected. My mind was building a story on its own, and I couldn't stop it. And then came the moment that changed everything. I was walking past her room when her phone lit up on the bed. I didn't mean to look, but I did. Just for a second, just enough to see a message pop up on the screen. I didn't even read the full thing. I didn't need to. The name, the timing, the way it appeared so late at night, it was enough to make my heart drop. In that moment, something inside me broke. I didn't say anything. I didn't confront her. I didn't tell my dad. I just walked away, acting like everything was normal. But inside, nothing was normal anymore. My thoughts were racing, my chest felt tight, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a truth I didn't want to accept. I started asking myself questions I never thought I would ask. How long has this been going on? Does my dad know? Am I the only one seeing this? Or am I just imagining things? And that's the part that destroyed me the most. Because I didn't know what was worse, the possibility that my mom was hiding something from us, or the possibility that I was slowly losing trust in the one person who had never given me a reason to doubt her. I stayed quiet, I watched, I overthought everything, and deep down I was becoming more and more convinced that something was seriously wrong. I just didn't know how wrong I actually was. After that night, everything changed in a way I couldn't control. I wish I could say I stayed calm, that I trusted her and ignored the thoughts in my head, but I didn't. Instead, I started paying attention to everything. Every little detail became important. Every small action felt like a clue I needed to figure out. She was still the same on the surface. She made dinner, asked about my day, laughed at random things on TV. If anyone else looked at her, they'd say nothing was wrong. But to me, it felt different. It felt like there was a version of her I didn't know anymore, a side of her that only existed when no one was watching. The phone became the biggest problem. It was always with her. Before, she would leave it anywhere, on the table, in the kitchen, even in my room sometimes. But now, she carried it everywhere. Even if she got up for a few seconds, it was in her hand. And if she ever forgot it somewhere, she came back almost immediately, like she couldn't risk leaving it out of sight. One evening, we were all sitting together and her phone buzzed. It was just a normal notification, but the way she reacted wasn't normal. She grabbed it so quickly, glanced at the screen, and then her expression changed for a split second before she forced a smile again. That moment stayed in my head. It was too fast for anyone else to notice, but I noticed. That's when my thoughts started getting worse. I began creating scenarios in my mind, connecting things that may not have even been connected. Late night calls, secretive behavior, the message I saw, it all started forming a story that felt real, even if I didn't have proof. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me, even though a part of me kept screaming that I was wrong. But fear is stronger than logic sometimes. I started avoiding her. Not completely, but enough that she noticed something was off with me too. She would ask, "Is everything okay?" And I'd just nod or say I was tired. I couldn't look her in the eyes for too long because every time I did, I felt guilty and confused and angry at the same time. Angry not because I knew anything for sure, but because I thought I did. Days passed like this, and the tension inside me kept building. I felt like I was carrying a secret that was too heavy for me, but I also felt like I couldn't share it with anyone. I couldn't tell my dad. What if I was wrong? What if I destroyed everything over a misunderstanding? But at the same time, what if I was right and stayed silent? That question kept me awake at night. Then one day, something happened that pushed me to my limit. She told us she had to go out in the afternoon. It wasn't unusual, she sometimes visited relatives or went shopping, but this time, something about it felt different. Maybe it was the way she said it, or maybe it was just my mind already looking for reasons. But as soon as she left the house, I felt this sudden urge that I couldn't ignore. I decided to follow her. Even as I stepped outside, I knew what I was doing was wrong. This was my mother, the person who trusted me the most. And here I was, hiding, watching, doubting her, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed answers. I needed to know if everything in my head was real or not. I kept my distance, making sure she didn't see me. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it would give me away. Every step I took felt heavier than the last. I kept telling myself I'd turn back, that I'd stop, but I didn't. She walked for a while, then got into a rickshaw. I followed, trying to stay unnoticed. The entire time, my mind was racing. This was it. This was the moment where everything would be confirmed. Every fear, every doubt, it was all about to become real, or so I thought. She finally stopped in an area I didn't recognize well. It wasn't a place we usually went. That alone made my stomach drop. I watched her get down and walk toward a building. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look around. It was like she had been there before. That hurt more than anything. I stood there for a few seconds, frozen. This was the moment I had been building up in my head for days. If I walked forward, I'd finally know the truth. But at the same time, I was terrified of what that truth might be. Still, I forced myself to move. I followed her inside, trying to stay as quiet and unnoticed as possible. My chest felt tight, my hands were slightly shaking, and my thoughts were all over the place. I was expecting the worst. I was preparing myself to see something that would change how I looked at my family forever. She walked down a hallway and stopped near a door. I stayed back just enough so I could see without being seen, and in that moment, everything inside me felt like it was about to collapse. I thought I was about to witness the biggest betrayal of my life. I thought I was about to prove every terrible thought I had been having. But what I didn't realize was that I was only seconds away from realizing how wrong I had been this entire time. What I saw next is something I will never forget, and it changed everything I thought I knew about trust, family, and myself. My mom wasn't doing what I had convinced myself she was. She wasn't meeting someone in secret. She wasn't lying to my dad or hiding anything bad. What she was doing was something completely different, something selfless, something I could never have guessed. She was helping my aunt, who had been secretly struggling with health issues and couldn't ask for help herself. She had been taking care of her, arranging appointments, managing medicine, and keeping it quiet because she didn't want anyone in the family to worry. Every phone call, every late-night message, every hurried step I had misread was about someone else's pain, not about betrayal in our family. In that moment, guilt hit me harder than anything else I had ever felt. All those nights I spent doubting her, all those times I let my imagination twist reality, all those feelings of anger and suspicion, they weren't just wrong, they were unfair. I realized I had been judging the one person who had always been there for me, the person who loved me unconditionally, the person who sacrificed so much so that my life could feel safe and normal. My mind had filled in the gaps with fear and assumptions, but the truth was far more beautiful and far more complicated than my fears. I didn't go to her immediately. I stood there for a few moments, trying to process what I had seen, trying to make sense of the fact that I had spent so long convinced of something terrible, only to be completely wrong. I felt ashamed, not just for doubting her, but for letting my thoughts control my actions, for following her, for invading her privacy. It was a hard lesson, but it was a lesson I desperately needed to learn. When I finally went back home, I watched her from a distance, seeing her smile when she returned, tired but satisfied with what she had done. I realized then how much of life we misunderstand, how easily fear and imagination can twist reality, and how important it is to pause, observe, and trust the people we love. I wanted to apologize not just for the doubts, but for every moment I let suspicion and mistrust cloud my mind. I wanted to tell her that I understood now, that I had learned something about patience, trust, and empathy that no one can teach in a book or a lesson. That experience stayed with me, and it changed the way I see not just my mom, but the way I approach relationships and life itself. I realized that assumptions are dangerous. Thinking the worst is easy, but understanding the truth takes courage and patience. Sometimes people hide things not to deceive or hurt, but to protect, to help, to shield others from worry or pain. And sometimes our imagination is our biggest enemy. I want anyone watching this to understand that doubt can be destructive. It can make us question the people we love the most, it can poison our thoughts, and it can blind us to the truth that is often more ordinary, more loving, and more human than we imagine. We think we know, we think we see, we think we understand, but sometimes we're completely wrong. And the only way to find out is to step back, breathe, and remember that the people who love us most are not our enemies. They are often carrying burdens we can't even see. That day, I learned more about my mom than I had in my entire life. I learned about her kindness, her strength, her quiet courage, and her incredible ability to love without needing recognition or praise. And I also learned something about myself, that I am capable of fear and doubt, yes, but I am also capable of reflection, of growth, and of realizing the truth before it's too late. I understood that trust is fragile, but it's also redeemable, and that the ones who matter most in our lives deserve our patience, our understanding, and our unwavering belief in their love. From that moment on, I promised myself that I would never let fear twist my thoughts again, that I would never let suspicion take root without seeking understanding. And that I would always give those I love the benefit of the doubt, because sometimes the truth is far better than anything our imagination could ever conjure. And most importantly, I promised that I would never forget the lesson I learned that day, that love often works quietly, selflessly, and without recognition, and that doubting it is the greatest mistake we can ever make.